back to another reaction. I am almost recovered from COVID, so I had to take a little more than a week off, but hopefully we'll be back to daily stuff for a while now. And can do lots of Xenoblade, some Clair Obscure, and my usual mix of some obscure things here and there. Gonna do some more Fire Emblem episodes of Fire Emblem 4, and so on. But anyways, for this piece today, we're gonna look at Counterattack, which has been suggested by a few people. I appreciate the suggestions, and it is another Kenji Hiramatsu track, who in some previous research I saw was responsible for a lot of the battle music, oftentimes in charge of that. It's from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And yeah, I'm not reading when it plays because some spoilers possibly, because I do plan to play the series someday. But yeah, right, let's listen. Damn, what a great intro. Holy shit. Fantastic, just like, it does a massive just 0 to 100 crescendo that it does in a really nice way. It has a gradual build up. And then it actually drops out again, does another one. You could call them drops maybe, like it has 2 drops. But just what a exciting way to lead into a battle theme, and just the instrumentation with the buildup of the noise there is not really like a way you hear it done a lot. I really appreciate the uniqueness already, just like how to build a lot of excitement immediately. Like it introduces the idea that there's going to be electric guitar, which is also, kind of a genre expectation with battle music in a JRPG. And I'm sure if you've been playing Xenoblade Chronicles, you're well aware they're going to use guitar in this context, but completely out of context. It does a great job of like subtly introducing that instrument as part of that crescendo, and teases you with a bit of the layering of sounds that's going to happen, and they sound very good together. And then the second crescendo in the second drop actually is with kind of different instrumentation, so it gives you a taste of a lot of different things and kind of whets your appetite in the first 10 seconds for like not only this ramp up of intensity to kind of jumpstart the energy into a battle, but it also just like kind of teases like the really high quality instrumentation it's going to have and a bit of variety that could occur. So I'm already kind of expecting from this like 7-8 seconds of this like double intro, I'm already kind of expecting that for a battle track this is actually going to have some very contrasting sections. I don't know, it just presents that idea with these 2 different patterns that it introduces with. Let me catch them again. Yeah, there's like this echoing of maybe like a metal plate being like hit a little bit. There's some like modern experimental classical music that people at a school I was at did a lot of, and they did things with these metal plates and the kind of echoey sound they make. It just reminds me of that. It could be anything, but it's the very first thing you hear, and I think it just is such a unusual sound and a choice for like the very first thing you hear. Yeah, that's just like metallic echo, and it serves its purpose really well in this crescendo, and then the electric guitar comes in immediately. Yeah, and then we come in with the piano, the strings, again, this kind of like rock / classical symphonic mix instrumentation wise that comes up a lot in these tracks. And again, I think it's so cool that JRPGs do this so often when it's so rare anywhere else, like outside of the world of game music, and especially JRPG music. You could maybe include like anime in there. Visual novels, there's just sort of a larger genre as well, in which there's a soundtrack style that things can trend towards. But in the bigger picture of like music, classical music and other contemporary music, you just don't hear too much of like for example, when you listen to like rock bands, and if a rock band starts to have like classical instrumentation with the string section and piano, they start to really stand out. Like, it's so rare that people go like, oh, they're like a classical prog rock band, or there's like a couple tracks by, say, a band like Muse that like really stand out to people for having like a classical influence with the rock music, and it's such like a unique combination. And then if you see it in classical music, it's like super rare to have some like concerto for electric guitar. Like, that would be considered a kind of avant-garde, like, or at the very least a pretty uncommon choice for instrumentation to make a piece like that. And when they show up, they make a little bit of a splash. It's like, ooh, that's kind of unique. And then it's just so funny that in all that realm, classical, non-classical, it always stands out. People really take notice as it being a rare thing. And then you just go into like games, JRPGs, anime, visual novels, and it's like there's this rock plus classical instrumentation everywhere, and it works really well. And I think that music in these other spheres could really just like learn quite a lot about how to do these combinations, how to do this instrumentation, and what you can gain from doing it, like what artistic purpose it might serve, and how to really leverage that in a world where it's really been pushed very far, but there's many people who are completely unaware that this instrumental combination has actually gone really far. Anyways, just rambling about feelings about some musical things as they introduce this instrumentation right away. So might be a long video, we'll see. Yeah, beautiful kind of like descent with some figurations with piano, comes back up to the top, ends on a single high note, fades out into the next build up and drop. You know, even just the line taken by the piano writing there really supports like what it's trying to do in this moment, shape wise. And then yeah, we get a just drop out just for a moment, just for 1 second, and maybe that's just like a guitar effect sound there. It's not the like metallic echo that we get in the beginning. Yeah, there's just a little bit of a reverberation that sounds like it might be just a guitar effect. Who knows? It could be anything. So like the first time we get that kind of subtle, soft, echoing roar, and then the second drop. Yeah, we get that. I would call it a vibration. Anyways, looks like the guitar lead's coming in with the main melody. The string counter melody there is so good in the cellos, I think. What an incredible just melodic line. It's so vocal, beautiful arcs, and they're really like kind of bold to do a battle theme. I mean, I love battle themes that are subdued. I really think they're oftentimes very cool. There's a whole area in my playlist for like sort of calm but stimulating, and that's a sort of vibe of battle music I do think is really cool. But just the bravery to like have these exciting intros and then pull back for this whole melodic statement with very limited instrumentation, lovely just sort of supporting strings behind this electric guitar lead. And then once we've been introduced to this like very subtle combination for a bit, which just even just harmonically is like a little bit poignant, like there's some really nice emotion already being created here, not just from the melody but from the harmonic context, but then as we get, you know, made used to that combination, it eventually starts bringing in a counter melody in the string section. Primarily I think the cellos kind of come in more, which is just stunning, and I really want to hear it more. So we're going to back up a little bit in this melody. I guess we'll restart the whole thing. Yeah, it's actually a little bit wistful. Yeah, it just sounds so good. What an excellent recording. Like, Yeah. The as the main guitar holds that high note in the melody, it stays static, and then we get these cellos come in with this da 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 da, and I just think it sounds so lovely. Um, and a common sort of thing to do of where again you keep one thing that was moving, you keep it now static in place, and you bring in something else that moves. I talk about this sometimes in my videos, but this just element of designing a track where you don't want to necessarily always keep adding layers unless your goal is to increase the complexity and the amount to pay attention to. But typically, a better default, unless your goal is to heighten the energy, is to hold something that was moving before static so that you have room to add something else that can take the attention and the focus of the listener. So here they just let this melody stay on one note. They bring in this counter melody in the strings, and it's just stunning because you have the mental space to hear it. All of a sudden, you're not as distracted by the motion of the main melodic line. So it just works really well. It's part of why it was so beautiful to me, even on a first listen, trying to pay attention to a lot. It so well gives space to hear that new element that it's almost like impossible to miss, at least if you're focusing on it in a vacuum like I'm doing here. Obviously if you're playing the game, you could miss anything in music. Sometimes I beat a whole game and I'm like, I don't even remember anything about the soundtrack. It just went by in a blur. Sometimes just the mixing or like the default volume of the soundtrack's pretty low in games as well. Like I'm playing East X Nordics right now, and I actually had to like crank the soundtrack to maximum to even really notice it enough to get more of the value of how great that soundtrack is. All the East soundtracks are really great, but honestly I realized like it was too far in the background, like just mixing wise. I had to crank it way up and crank other things down. So obviously you could miss it while playing, but while just listening to the track, designing the balance of foreground and background of what takes your attention means even the first time I heard it, it was totally bold and right in my face that this beautiful counter melody was happening. And I think it would be the case for most listeners. Again, just leveraging the awareness of the listener's attention is a very important concept when making music, and you have to know what you want to do with their attention. Anyways, let's go back. I want to hear that again, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see at what point it builds the energy into more of the traditional battle theme. Yeah, great place for that melody to stop. Kind of a new sort of chord structure that it makes with those three notes. Still keeping it light. Transitions to the piano. The guitar gets the counter melody. Oh, what a beautiful spot for the violins to do that. Again, just incredible little counter melody work in here, like taking your attention in one place and then just demonstrating this awesome proficiency at writing these beautiful melodies off to the side. Really great crash course in like how to do that. Just so far already like 4 or 5 times in this piece. But I want to hear this little violin one again because it was stunning. Yeah, lovely violin spot. As the guitar goes down, those violins step up, so they're going in contrary motion, which is almost always effective. If you ever take lessons in music theory, composition, you study some Bach and some, part writing rules, and what you would call counterpoint, different species counterpoint. Some of you may be familiar with that, some of you not, and maybe someday we'll go and study it. And it's not rules you always have to follow, but it is a nice basis to learn about like what tends to work and why, and just the math of music. And one of the like simplest and most common rules about it is that you're pretty much always safe to do something that sounds good without tripping up and doing something that's kind of wrong, like accidentally doing some ugly parallel motion or lining notes up in a way that, like, you could do it if you wanted to sound weird, but if you want music to sound pleasing and just to work mathematically, there's things to avoid. But you pretty much always avoid these possible mistakes if you just move in contrary motion, if you just go in opposite directions at the same time. It's almost like a cheat code. Like, it's, very rare that that's going to get you into trouble. Again, trouble in terms of like just following some basic math about what can work. So contrary motion is just oftentimes very successful, and it's working great here. The sort of second layer electric guitar kind of steps down a couple times, and then this violin counter melody comes and steps up at the same time, and then finishes with a few more stepwise motions upwards. And it just works so well. And I love that even this second section is still subdued. It passes more to the piano. It changes the instrumentation a bit. The electric guitar actually sounds quite different. It feels like it's paired with another sound or instrument as like a unit here, versus how like clean and individual it was in the first section as the main melody. So they're changing a lot instrumentally, but it's still pulled back, and I think that's really awesome. But yeah, I want to hear this part I was talking about again, with this little contrary motion between guitar and violins, and then the violins step up in this subtle but again beautiful, just like that earlier cello melody, just still beautiful. Yeah, right there. Do, do, in the guitar, and then you hear the violin step up. Yeah, right there is where it does contrary, and then yeah, we get them to step up further. There we go. Yeah, it hits so much better after like this whole minute of it teases you at the beginning with those two crescendo kind of drops, goes into two subtle sections. It really just, like, I felt it in me. That was like, we're here, we've arrived, we've made it to the energy. Not that it's any better, in fact I probably prefer the earlier sections in terms of like my style, but it felt like it hit way harder. Like, it was, sorry, I didn't mean to play it there, but like it was almost like it teased you so much for the build up. But I want to go back, because something I really like is after that violin ascending counter melody, it actually does a great job of like continuing that section. The violins kind of stay on the note that they reached there, or very close to it, and they kind of work around in that area, rather than that being this counter melody that's a one-off thing that's lovely, and then they drop out and then we do something else. I really like that they actually persist there and continue playing that role in that spot. I want to just listen to it a little more closely before moving on into the energy. Yeah, they stay on that note, they step up, and then they hold it into the new harmonic context. Yeah, they actually like then they lock in and go parallel with like the main melody at that moment. They really like get used very effectively there. And then they're new. The drums sound so good when they come in. It's funny that they have this like that kind of like back and forth melody that I feel like a lot of people oddly just like jump in and say that, oh, it sounds like Bach. It's like that, very famous like prelude and fugue. And It's like, you know, a million people have done that all over the place. That wasn't even necessarily original by box standards. So there's sometimes a cliche that people will point out, like that's somehow a shout out to it. And it can be. It's so well known that people might be making an allusion to it, a reference to it when they compose with that structure. But it's just as likely as it is not likely. It really shouldn't be linked to that, but the fact that it is in a sense of popular culture, the conception of it, that maybe it can sometimes be a reference since it's in people's minds. But yeah, it just jumped into my head that, like, I feel like some people would be like, oh, that's a box shout out, and I would feel like it is definitely not necessarily. It's just a way to write a melody. That sounds very good. I'm gonna go back and listen to these sections again. Sounds so good. Down, down, down. It just repeatedly hitting that note. I just love it. It's so cool. Yeah, I love the little rhythmic difference. The dun da 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 da. That was not even close pitch-wise, but... like, just the little delay, the little dotted rhythm there is really effective. Because they could have just kept it going straight, since they just did a very straight melodic style with those alternating notes. But they do a dotted rhythm there. It sounds much more interesting. What a great build-up. I love the harmonization here. Again, kind of dotted rhythms. Love stepping up there in the melody. They've given it to us once. Second time, they go a little higher than you expect. Versus the first statement, which again just keeps you really engaged. Bit of a new section. All right. Nice. We get you can almost like not even hear it. It's very in the background, but we get the electric guitar just faintly. I think it's just repeating like doo-doo-doo-doo. It's just hitting the same note. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it there just for a few seconds. It's kind of funny because it sounds really cool. The only part that's humorous is that it's so quiet. It would be kind of neat if that layer was louder, but I'm sure there's a reason for why they want to mix it like that. But it's funny. It just jumps in there. It's doing this really cool, just hammering this note. It's actually kind of hype. Wow, what a like sustained attention section. It goes on 2 or 3 times as long as I feel like a listener might expect it to. And again, you have that guitar continuing to be quite faint in the background. You know, it's warbling all over the place. We get some lovely piano layers in there that, again, it's actually a blend of so many elements at once that it's hard to focus on too many of them. Mostly you get that, the large repeated hits that just keep that tension sustained. Really builds you up into the next section. And I was kind of predicting it was going to actually pull back rather than serve as building tension into an even greater energetic section. And it seems like that's what it's doing. It just feels kind of right to like tease that much of a ramp up and then to actually go back to some restraint. And it does seem like they're doing that. some like probably double kicks in the drums there. Fade out. The quality of the strings recordings that they got, the performances are just so good. And there's a bit of a downward stepwise there. Da, 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 da. I think it might have been in the original guitar melody, but it's definitely what that cello counter melody was. You know, I mean, it's just a series of downward steps, like on a scale, but that's the thing with music. Like, what makes something a melody versus just a motion? Like, what is it that makes it have some sort of symbolic purpose that you actually notice as a listener? And it's really just, it's mostly about repetition. Obviously, if you're like improvising and say you know, the only difference between a mistake and, you know, an actual musical idea is that you repeat it. So improvising all the time, it's like you do something kind of wrong, you just do it again and do it a few more times, and then all of a sudden you've incorporated it. Same goes for things that could be like super mundane, right? Like, what, you know, does 4 or 5 notes just stepping down in a scale, does that have a musical identity on its own? No. And it also might just be a little motion that's part of something bigger. You know, you might have some like some Beethoven-esque piano concerto or something that has runs all over the place, and they're all just diatonic scale runs usually, and flourishes, and it's like you wouldn't take like 4 or 5 notes out of that kind of detailing and call it like a melody. So it's all about context. And here, even though that downward stepwise motion has been made part of a greater melodic shape, despite that, I would still argue that it's been taken and placed in other contexts as well, like in that singular cello counter melody, that make you notice it more. And once you've noticed a certain thing from repetition, and it seems to be used specifically, and it becomes a little memorable, all of a sudden you have something that has a musical identity within the piece. And of course it's very subjective, and all the lines are blurred because it's art. But I really like that way that really anything you do with any notes could be like iconically melodic. That's part of why I like have so much enjoyment listening to, say, retro music that's like very technically limited, and it's really just a small amount of pitch content, because in that context, even repeating very simple shapes and melodies that are just these old chiptune you know, basic series of notes, when they're repeated and used contextually, even that can be made to be iconic and memorable. And there's something kind of magical about like composers who are gifted at finding the right kind of combinations. You have like a Koji Kondo, someone like that, who you would think like it's just a series of a few notes. It could be totally mundane in a different context, but it really doesn't take much. And that's one of my favorite things about music, is like how the simplest things can become special with the right artistic touch. It's all contextual. Anyways, I'm going to back up and hear that again and keep going. I'm loving this subdued section. Yeah, there's the cellos again. All right, so you can hear what I'm talking about, right? I don't think I'm too crazy on this one. Like, yeah, that downward scalar motion in the violins could just be part of some, you know, stepping down and up in that melody, but then you hear it again right away, that same cello counter melody, and it may not be the exact same notes, but it's very close. And I think they're trying to show you that that's a shape that is meant to have an identity in this piece. We'll listen to it again and see if you pick up on those two series of downward notes. Oh, what a great sound of the guitar there. That sounds fucking awesome. Love that major chord. A little tinkling. Sounds so good. The dotted rhythm. I love stepping up higher in that melody. It sounds so good. Whoa, completely different feel. What is happening? Pull back and get a little quietly groovy and bring in this bass. What a shift. We've already had 4 or 5 different styles of the sections in this piece. Listen to that bass sound. All the instruments are just recorded so immaculately on the soundtrack. Oh, interesting little, like, I don't even know what you would call that, a Celesta or something. The little sort of glowy digital sound here instead of the typical piano. What a choice instrumentally. Piano's really growing. Yes, I love the use of that bass piano note. It is my favorite sound in all of music, is low notes on a piano. And they added in here to the sort of these rock hits that change the energy here transitionally. I love throwing in piano notes. I just in general really like when low piano notes are used in sync, like paired instrumentally as a unit with guitar sound. I think it's just really effective. They do it here. If anybody knows official Higedandism or Higedon and like their track Crybaby for Tokyo Revengers, the anime. In Crybaby, like the whole thing is there's this kind of groovy bass line that is done entirely with low piano notes plus guitar, and I think it just sets a great vibe, and it feels like something that should be done more. So I love that they do it here. It's actually pretty in the forefront. It's like kind of defining these hits, which I love. Just, yes, give me that deep, low piano sound. More of a guitar solo, finally. Damn. Yes, what a great guitar solo. That was brilliant. Not in terms of like groundbreakingly technical or something, but like in the context of this piece, like it's even better than what I was hoping for. It just sounds amazing. It's like the perfect sort of medium length guitar solo. God, what wonderful melodic choices in that solo. I found that very enjoyable. And then they go back to this sort of pattern of these repeated hits as a transitional tool, which they've been using throughout here in different instrumentations. So it's kind of nice that, again, by now that's got an identity in this piece. It's become really enjoyable to like expect that it's going to do that. Anyways, I want to back up, listen to a little more, hear that transition, see where we go next, probably the last section here. There's actually quite the piano arpeggio, piano flourish. It's kind of in the background, but I think it goes kind of all the way up and back down. Yeah, I think it did. Ooh. That was sick. It teases you. It finishes off. It says it's going to transition. It drops it, and then it complete drops, comes back in from the silence with a new chord. A different harmony. So it tricks you out both in terms of the energy by dropping the instruments, but it also fools you on what harmony it's going to come in on. It shifts it, reharmonizes it. I think it might just be stepping up a whole tone, which is kind of a common way to like energize a piece harmonically. I think it might just be doing that, which is kind of the perfect choice here. But what a cool piece. I love that rhythm so much. Yes. Yes. What a great way to end that. Again, we're back to those repeated hits that we've been using everywhere here transitionally, but we get them primarily in these high strings. Like, again, probably not what happens in game. Probably the loop point is different than this, or this is the exact loop point back to somewhere near the very beginning here. If anybody can tell me like exactly where the loop point is, that would be very cool. Because I'm curious when they choose to do that. Yeah, great choice to end it. Okay, so that was very good. That was absolutely excellent. What a great suggestion. I think this might be my favorite kind of battle theme I've seen so far. I mean, I haven't seen a lot. I've seen the Battle Torna. I've seen the Fog Beasts track. Sent Omnia Region Day, which is not really a battle track probably, but like close. Anyways, out of the like higher energy Xenoblade stuff I've listened to, I think this might be my favorite. Hard to say, they're all really amazing, and I haven't gone back and listened to them yet. I will when I actually make these playlists, and then they'll be available to everybody, which will be very cool. But I feel maybe they're just all so good that when I listen to each one, it's like, that's my new favorite. That could be happening, you know, just recency bias. We all love a little recency bias. But this was just killer. It was so good. I love that it took, you know, a minute plus to even get to the first section that really had battle energy. It had the bravery to be really restrained at parts. I think, honestly, what makes me like this one so much is that I just like the melodic content. Like, be it sections where it's primarily in the guitar as the main melody or in the guitar solo, be it just the strings melodies, whether they're supporting melodies or taking the lead. I just felt like both like pitch-wise, melodic shape-wise, and rhythmically, it was just really satisfying. I felt like it just hit a sweet spot for melodic writing that just made it really catchy, really enjoyable to listen to. I think it just nailed it. I think Kenji Hiramatsu here like demonstrated just really great, you know, gift at melodic writing. Like, not everybody can write good melodies. Like, it's kind of an interesting skill set that there's some incredible composers who just never really felt comfortable being able to write a catchy, great melodic line. Somebody like Franz Liszt, who was always kind of jealous of a composer like Chopin, who could sort of just, in every single piece, he's just weaving these memorable melodic lines that are just really catchy and have so much personality and identity. And then he's like writing amazing pieces, but rarely being satisfied with being able to write like a catchy melody. You know, you have people who are just having it pour forth from them, like a Franz Schubert, who, you know, greatest songwriter of all time, just wrote hundreds and hundreds of songs, and all of them are catchy. You know, you have people all over the place like that. Or Rachmaninoff, my favorite composer, who seems like every piece he writes has like a dozen of the greatest melodies you've ever heard. It's just like, where do those all come from? I feel like Hiramatsu-san is like really impressing me with like every melody he writes in a piece like this, at least. is like just nailing it. Like, what a great line. So this is my kind of new VGM reactions set up here for a little list. I guess this goes under orchestrated energy again. It's kind of hard to say because it has a lot of very different sections, but then again, I think all of them do. I think all these pieces do. I think they generally all have a lot of contrast, which is great. That's what makes them especially good pieces of music, is that they have contrast. Not that a piece needs that to be great. There can be a piece that's short and to the point and really just does one thing and can still be incredible. Like, that doesn't hold it back, but it is impressive to see that they always have so much work going into them. So it's Counterattack. Let's unbold this so it looks correct. Anyhow, yeah, definitely made the playlist. I really went off the rails a lot in this reaction, but I don't know. It's my first one back, and hopefully some of what I talked about is interesting. You know, a lot of times I think my reactions are closer to like a podcast episode, you know, especially when they're 30 plus minutes, closer to just a podcast about music, which just uses the piece as inspiration to talk about different things. I think a lot of times it's like that, and maybe even worth like publishing as a podcast. Who knows? But hopefully, some of you all enjoyed the winding paths of my thoughts I have about music and about this piece, and really took my time going moment by moment and noticing things I really liked. And hopefully those are some things that you guys like too about this piece. I think it was excellent. Once again, great suggestion. Please continue to leave suggestions. I'll keep them in mind, especially if some of them get a lot of support or multiple people suggest them. For now, I'm just kind of picking from the pool of what everybody tells me to give a shot, mixed with some of my own choices. But please leave suggestions. If you want to give me more context about the piece, spoiler free, feel free to tell me anything you know about it. Let me know if you are aware exactly where the loop point is in the game. Would love to know that. And I hope to see you in future reactions. Keep checking out my stuff for more Xenoblade, and have a great day.